This sacrifice review was brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Try it, and the next time Dixie Carter wants to interfere in a match, she won't do it dressed as a man. Well, I said this show might surprise me. And it did. I really don't want to spend a lot of time on this one, so let's just cut right to it. Was Sacrifice a perfect pay-per-view? Hell no. But was it one of the better offerings TNA has produced lately? I think it might just be. It feels weird me taking this stance on it, but I feel like Sacrifice has been getting a lot of unfair criticism. It's also been getting a lot of fair criticism, but if I'm honest with myself and try to separate the good from the bad, I feel like there was more of one than the other here. The tag title match became a no DQ match right before bell time. Because why on earth would we want to announce something like that in advance on the TV show when it might, however unlikely, get us a few extra buys? Because who the fuck needs pay-per-view buys, right? And why even bother with a no DQ stipulation in the first place if you were barely going to use it? It seems like TNA were jumping through a lot of hoops and throwing logic to the wind just so they could make this matchup 3-on-2 with the Wolves at a disadvantage. But that makes no damn sense when the Wolves are buddies with MVP and he could easily just ban DJZ from ringside and tell the heels they lose the titles if they get DQ'd. Why can he do this for Eric Young but not his friends? And if it's no DQ, then why didn't Davey just jump into the ring to help Eddie when he was getting beaten down? Stupid! But if you disregard the sloppy writing, you know what? This wasn't half bad. It got off to a hot start. There was a really boring stretch in the middle when the Bromance were isolating Eddie Edwards with their sleep-inducing offense. But then the Wolves took control, it got exciting again, and it had a hot finish. The Wolves are so damn good, they actually managed to drag the Bromance to a solid match here. And might I add, not an easy thing to do. So the match is better than expected, the Wolves win the tag titles, the Bromance's farce of a title reign finally comes to an end. I'd say that's more good than bad right there. Yes! So, a committed match is really just an ambulance match? Why not just call it an ambulance match then so you don't confuse people? I don't know. This was an improvement on Anderson and Shaw's other matches, but bear in mind that bar was set awfully low. Christy Hemme nails Samuel Shaw in the balls to help Anderson, so the babyface cheated to win this match. And that's about all I've got. This feud lost me weeks ago. All I want is for it to go away. But again, I'm not the target audience for it. Whatever fan contingent they're aiming at with this feud, I'm not a part of that. So, I didn't like this. But if you liked it, if you got some kind of enjoyment out of this match, hats off to you. EC3 and Rockstar Spud versus Kurt Angle and Willow was a fun match. It just felt like an Impact match. I think they really hurt this one when they had both heels lose to Willow in a handicap match on TV. After that, there was no reason to think they wouldn't lose here. Still, it was entertaining, and Rockstar Spud was totally getting face chants here. How about that?
Rockstar Spud is in the building!
But just like Willow and Kurt Angle to take the coward's way out, once again focusing on Spud and shamelessly ducking wrestling's greatest hero EC3 after he granted them the honor and the privilege of being in his ring. That's despicable. Don't even get me started on those two. Their time's coming. EC3 will serve them up a steaming hot plate of justice very soon. Just you wait. I think Sonata versus Tigre Uno was hurt by the fans really having no reason to care about or emotionally connect with either of them. TNA have tried a little bit with Sonata, but it takes more than a couple video packages to manage that. When you get right down to it, there was no real reason to cheer one guy over the other, and there was no real story here. The story was match, 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 the end. So all you could ask for is that this would be a good match. And it was. Toward the end, when they were focusing on Sonata's head and neck, there were some great bumps and some nasty shots that made me wince. in a good way. No real story, but a good X Division match nevertheless. I don't know if it accomplished anything more than that, but for what it was, I enjoyed it. But really, fuck those douchebags in the crowd with their "Let's Go Goku" chants. I thought that was incredibly disrespectful and actually a little bit racist. All the people who are chanting that need to piss off. Seriously.
And that's the fishing line, 'cause Shark Boy said so.
I feel like this feud with James Storm and Gunner is a great example of stuff that TNA could be doing a lot more of if they were really serious about being counterculture to the WWE right now, rather than doing some of the stuff they've been doing. Because in TNA, when you have a really personal, heated rivalry with the right story behind it, you can take it to places that the PG-rated WWE just won't go to. You can get really violent, you can show a little blood, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. WWE doesn't do that, but TNA can. And when it's done right, you can get great results like what you got here. Storm and Gunner beat the living piss out of each other. I thought they did a dynamite job in selling just how personal this had become and how much animosity there was between them, to the point where nothing else was working and Gunner had to almost gouge Storm's eye out with a piece of glass just to get him to finally quit. This was about as violent as you can get in mainstream wrestling, and you just don't see WWE going to levels like that these days. And it baffles me that TNA don't take this route with feuds more often, because that represents a crack in WWE's armor, and they could really exploit it a lot more than they do. As much as I just want to skip the Knockouts title match altogether, as much as I didn't care to see it, this was a better match than I thought we'd get from these two. Shockingly, due in large part to Madison Rayne. I gotta give credit where it's due. I could not stand Madison as a heel, but since she started working as a babyface, her wrestling has been so much better. She still doesn't seem to be particularly over, but hey, if you have a good match, I'll give you props. And this wasn't bad, it really wasn't. Nothing amazing, but one of the better knockout matches we've seen recently. That said, 30 seconds after it finished, I was like, okay, what else you got? The good match was appreciated, but the interest still just isn't there for me. I could talk about the Bully Ray Bobby Roode tables match. I could talk about the psychology or the physicality, or I could argue that it was a really good match outside of one of the worst botched ref bumps I've seen in years. But I'm not going to do that. Because that's not what we were supposed to take away from this, was it? No. In the end, despite the effort of Roode and Bully to put on a good match, one so physical that Bully walked away from it with cracked ribs, none of that really mattered, because all anyone was talking about afterward was the finish, where all the attention of this segment was taken away from Bully Ray and Bobby Roode and put on Dixie Carter dressed as a man.
What the fuck?
Well, add that to the list of reasons why TNA have trouble building credible feuds that get the right things over. You totally undercut a match that was supposed to be really serious with something that was just plain goofy. You made Bobby Roode feel secondary to Bully Ray's feud with the authority figure, who shouldn't even be there anymore. I thought Lethal Lockdown was supposed to take care of that. If you want to continue this Dixie Bully thing, so be it. And look, God bless the woman, but unless you actually plan on Dixie getting put through a table at some point, and I'm guessing you don't, then why is she getting this physically involved when there's no real way for Bully to properly retaliate? Why doesn't she just recruit some heels to do her dirty work for her? How about Austin Aries and Kenny King? They weren't doing anything on Sunday night anyway. I want to be more positive about the match itself, but I just can't. That finish was absolutely ridiculous and felt like it was done for all the wrong reasons. This was kind of laughable.
I will not participate in this charade this evening.
TNA, I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt on this Eric Young situation. I really am. I don't want to think that you did it just to piggyback on the Daniel Bryan title win, but when you have EY say stuff about how he doesn't have the look of a traditional world champion, coincidentally aping things Daniel Bryan has said recently almost word for word, you make that really difficult. And considering the ratings for the last two Impacts since Eric won the title, that might not be something you want to play up. Just something to think about.
Oh, you were not aware of this?
Main event time. Well, here's a shocker. Magnus had a match that did not involve stupid random swerves, tons of pointless overbooking, or interference from more people than you can count. And it was actually a good match. Isn't it amazing how that works, TNA? In fact, I'll go one better. Not only was this a good match, not only was it one of the better TNA main events we've seen recently, but Magnus probably looked better here and gained more in defeat in this match than he did at any point during his world title reign when he was winning matches only with the help of like half the heels on the roster and the authority figure. And why is that? Because he went out there alone, without backup. He had a solid competitive match that did not make him look pathetically weak, that had believable near falls, that let him kick out of some pile drivers, and sure, he lost, but he lost like a man, and not a paper champion, which Taz even pointed out. There was none of the bullshit that plagued his entire title reign, and actually, this match kind of felt like an apology for all that stuff. Clean finish, too, which surprised the hell out of me. And after all the overbooked nonsense that we've been dealing with in main events for the last few months, that was pretty refreshing. If Magnus had been booked more like this during his world title reign, it could very well have turned out a lot better than it did. The build-up to Sacrifice was underwhelming. It felt like an Impact on Sunday at least 50% of the time. Yes, there were a couple of incredibly stupid moments which I will make no excuses for, but overall, compared to some of TNA's other recent offerings, this wasn't terrible. Maybe I feel kind of defensive of it in a weird way, because I think a lot of people went into Sacrifice just dead set on hating it no matter what. But I didn't hate this. I didn't feel incredibly frustrated or pissed off when it was over. Maybe I'm just crazy like Crazy Steve, but you know what? I'm going to be nice to this one. Don't make me regret that this Thursday, TNA. Over. Out.